It is time for another fun-filled episode of Otaku Drive Time. I am your host, Jim Gogal, and it is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to those of you out there in Podcastia. And if you're not a father, well, then you have a father. Wish them a happy Father's Day. If you don't, then I don't know what to say. Have you ever noticed that I seem to start off every sentence with this elongated and? I just noticed it while editing recently and recording this opening that I'm going, and I was like, wow, I really do that a lot. That is kind of annoying. I mean, seriously, I didn't realize it was as annoying as it was until I had to listen to it over and over and over and over and over. For those of you in Podcastia who find it annoying, I'm sorry. I'm going to work really hard to not do that elongated and anymore at the beginning of segments. At least after this episode. It's going to be a concerted effort because, as many of you know, episodes are recorded, the segments in episodes are recorded independent of each other. So it wasn't until I was done doing all the edits for the individual sections that I realized that I have this really annoying and at the beginning of them all. I don't know if you guys think that way, but I sure as hell do, having listened to it. And wow, no wonder why. Just, wow, that is horrible. I mean, I went back and listened and noticed that I do it in almost every episode beginning. And when I was recording this opening for the first time, I did it there too. And I was like, oh my God, this is so horrible. So I am apologizing to you in Podcastia about that for all the many years and many episodes that you've had to listen to that annoying and. I'm going to make an effort to not do it anymore. So, what do we have in this episode? We've got, rejoining again, we've got TJ and Z talking Splatoon with me. Actually, they're educating me on Splatoon. Then you've got Chris, Sara, and I. We're going to be talking about Disney XD and Doctor Who, which is a whole interesting discussion all on its own. We're going to wrap it up with the Job Fiesta. Yeah, I know. What the hell is a Job Fiesta? Well, if you don't know, listen to that segment and they'll explain it all to you. I got an education from doing it, so I'm like, wow, okay. And that's going to be the, wow, I just did the long and again. That's really annoying. But then it gets wrapped up with me with a wonderful little closing. Yay! And you get to listen to our wonderful music and go from there. It's going to be an exciting episode. Happy, fun, filled. Please leave us your feedback again. You know, we got one person saying it sounded like fun. Thank you very much for your feedback. We really appreciate it. Anyone else in Podcastia who's listening, please jump on the bandwagon. Send us tweets. Send us everything. Alrighty, let's get this show on the road. And we are back.
Hi, Jim. Hi, panel.
Hi, TJ.
And we got Z.
Hi. Yeah, we're just a bunch of letters hanging out here.
Yeah.
TJ,
I've got 2 to
Z.
your 1, though.
Yeah.
Ha!
Hey, when I was in high school and early college and middle school, I was JJ.
Couldn't find a Jeff to hang around with, though.
So, we're here. What are we going to talk about now, TJ, since we've got you as a captive audience for the...
I'm going to take a wild guess by the TurboGrafx 16 reference and say he's probably here to talk about video games, Jim.
That's a safe assumption, yes.
Okay.
So, what game are we here to talk about? Because I have a feeling I know, but I think you two are going to... I'll let you guys lead this off.
Well, since you've alluded to it on about 15 different episodes leading up to this, I figured it's about time we cover the ink-encrusted battlefield that is Splatoon.
Splatoon, yes. Yes, it is actually finally out now. Interesting little tidbit about the Japanese sales of Splatoon here over the last 4 days. Actually, over the last 4 days of the week that it was released, it sold out in Japan. It sold more copies than the next 9 games on the list combined. Over 144,000 in Japan alone, topping that week's sales.
I didn't think there were that many Wii U's sold in Japan.
Well, there were, and there are actually at least more than that because the game, of course, sold out. And Nintendo had to issue apologies saying, hey, we're going to get more on there, but hey, why not just digitally download it? Save yourself some trouble.
If I'm not mistaken, they actually ran out of digital download sales at one point.
Hold on. Time out. How on God's green earth can you run out of a digital download?
Simple. They had an arbitrary... When they had to, put together the number of codes that they were going to be selling, they had to choose an arbitrary number. And the arbitrary number they chose was too low, apparently.
Right, because you have to allocate those codes specifically on the server, and they can't be reused.
Entertainingly enough, there's only one other time that's happened to Nintendo, and that was when Club Nintendo was closing and they were effectively giving away copies of Earthbound for free.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, on to games that we actually have now, which are Splatoon and Splatoon.
And lots of ink.
Lots and lots of ink. So why don't you go ahead and tell us, what is the deal about Splatoon anyway? I know we talked about it in Season 2, I believe, but...
That one's on me.
Wow, somebody doesn't remember to put his phone on vibrate or
someone
silent.
can lick my center of gravity, man.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, so, Splatoon. 5-second rundown on the game, please.
You spread ink. Some people think it's a shooter, and those people are usually bad at it.
Okay.
Give me something more than it's a shooter.
Well, you wanted the 5-second version. Okay.
That wasn't even 5 seconds.
That was closer to 3, and that was on me. But anyway, the idea behind Splatoon is it is a terrain control game. You are an inkling, or a squid-type person.
A squid or a kid, depending on the situation.
And how much you remember of, Nickelodeon in the 90s.
There is a very Double Dare vibe to this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. The idea is there are 2 opposing teams of 4, each assigned a specific color of ink. You basically have to splatter the entire map in your color using various implements such as, super soakers.
Big freaking paint rollers.
Mm-hmm. The usual stuff,
I don't think Big freaking paint roller qualifies as the usual stuff in any circumstances, truth be told.
Yeah.
Well, my uncle is a painter, so let's...
All right, now the average paint roller is maybe 10 to 12 inches at max.
My uncle values efficiency.
So,
That's
giant
some
paint
efficiency.
roller, how big is a giant paint roller? 7 feet?
I'd say, if we presume, the Inklings are considered to be in the vicinity of 14, 15, and if we're just kind of putting
Say
that
just
to
shy
a
of
scale,
5 feet for an
about
inkling.
5 feet on the roller.
Yeah.
And that's the basic model. There's one that actually goes a little bit wider than that.
Mm-hmm. That's not counting the 6-foot-long paintbrush.
Nah, that's in an upcoming patch, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's a 6-foot paintbrush. The more I hear about this game, the more I'm scratching my head. It's just like...
I think you'd prefer the airbrush, though, knowing your, proclivities toward painting things.
Spray and pray.
So you've got airbrush, paintbrush, 6-foot paintbrush,
Super soakers. Some of the sniper rifle-y kind of charger weapons are actually based off of cleaning supplies for whatever reason. There's one called the Squiffer.
Which does more than it sounds.
It actually looks more like a bottle of Febreze, but...
Yeah. Yeah. But it does the opposite of Febreze because it makes a mess.
It does. It makes a very, very focused mess in a straight line, preferably toward an opponent.
So what happens when you shoot your opponent with said Febreze or whatever it was?
They explode!
That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they explode and get sent to the respawn point. Which is, tactically worthwhile because that's, however long that there's one less gun on the field spewing your opposing color of ink.
And it's not very long, just to keep everybody in the action. It's like 4 or 5 seconds. But the interesting thing is, victory is not based on kill count. Victory is not based on your kill-death ratio. It is based on how much of the field is in your color when time expires. And regular matches are 3 minutes each.
That's for the turf war mode, though. Mm-hmm. That's for the basic multiplayer mode, as opposed to the ranked mode that just opened up recently.
Mm-hmm. That actually is a little bit closer to Dominion mode from Unreal Tournament, where you have a small control area, and only that area determines whether or not victory is yours or theirs. And you have to control it for a countdown of 100. So, believe it or not, it's a very tactical game in the same way that Super Smash Bros. Is, in that it is incredibly easy to pick up, but if you look into it, if you take the time to put some time into it, you'll get something a lot more rewarding than just run and gun.
Just include Nintendo.h, because you could say the same thing about Pokemon as well.
Exactly.
So tell me some more about weapons and such in this game, because I've heard you mention earlier about a giant speaker.
Yes, the killer whale.
Yes.
They really like their fish puns. That's one of the super weapons that you charge up by covering the battlefield with your ink. The more of the battlefield you cover, the faster your gauge charges.
And
when
if you're shot down,
up,
of course, you lose a little bit of that.
which can be mitigated by gear, but pretty much everything in this game can be mitigated by gear.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've charged it up, you get a big old wampum effect that you can drop in the middle of the field. It's a big old speaker that blasts a one-hit kill cone of sound in a direction completely unimpeded by terrain, or it could turn your squid form into a giant kraken. It's A, completely invulnerable, and B, can perform a jumping attack just to corkscrew through enemies.
The interesting thing about the Kraken is it also refills your ink instantaneously. So if you're
Most supers actually do.
Oh, they do.
Do you plug in a guitar and strum it real quick to get the effect?
If only that were the case.
Yeah, that's probably coming in a patch when they add taunting, which they're never going to do.
Hey, you know what? There's something to be said about Marty McFly strumming that guitar in front of the giant speaker and being thrown across the room. That's cool.
Right, but in this case, we set up the speaker in front of us, so we're going to be behind it watching everybody pop like balloons full of ink.
Sometimes you can even just throw it around a wall, knowing that it's going to pierce through any terrain, and just wait for the "You splatted X, you splatted Y" notifications to come up at the bottom of your screen. Mm-hmm. Or I like to use the killer whale actually just to prevent access by the opponents into a particular lane or choke point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just as a tactical consideration in the moment. I don't care if I actually hit them with it. It's just a matter of they're not going to get through here until the duration of this attack is over, and that'll give me a chance to either evade or flank around the other side or allow my allies to do so.
Mm-hmm. That and the ink curtain are pretty good traffic control weapons, but I like me some direct damage, and my particular favorite super weapon is the ink strike, which is a giant orbital cyclone of ink that you can drop anywhere on the field.
Yep. Completely unimpeded. Just poke at a location on the gamepad, since Splatoon really works with the gamepad integration fairly well. Mm-hmm. Instead of, just giving you some basic statistics, you're constantly getting a map updated in real time of the entire battlefield, your color, the opponent's color, where your allies are, and if you touch one of your allies on the gamepad, you can instantly jump to their location.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's more like a 2-second delay, but again, gear can accelerate
mitigated by
that.
gear.
Let's talk about the gear really quick, because that's actually one of the more interesting aspects.
It is funky and or dope, depending on your own style.
Yes, and the gear comes with randomized abilities such as defense up, damage up, ink saving, that sort of thing. At higher levels, you can actually re-roll what those bonuses are. So if you have a piece of gear that you really like, but you don't like the fact that it gives you +1 to your echolocation time, you can just say, you can go to a character in the main plaza.
A dodgy British sea urchin bloke.
Mm-hmm. And have him undo the gear, add new random modifications to it, and give it back to you. So basically it allows you to look as silly or as cool as you want. I'm personally rocking the snorkel and goggles right now?
Hey man, you can't have that. That snorkel's been just like a snorkel to me.
Well, yeah. Okay, thank you, Al.
I've always been wanting to do that bit with the Albuquerque snorkel line, except I haven't had a snorkel available for sale to me yet.
Well, you're welcome for the setup just now.
Alrighty.
So, like I said before, I'm not real familiar with the game. Third person, first person?
Third person.
Over the shoulder, or...
You've got a pretty good space of room between your Inkling's back and the camera.
Mm-hmm. The camera is controlled by default through motion controls on the gamepad. Fortunately, it's a very easy setting to switch that off if you're more familiar with the right stick controlling a camera, such as in any other third-person shooter ever.
That being said, I've actually had plenty of success with the motion controls. I've never actually turned them off.
And I have done horribly with them on, so, I mean, to each your own.
So it does use motion control on top of...
On top of the right stick for aiming.
Yes.
So so it doesn't use the traditional Wii mode, it just uses the gamepad.
Correct.
Correct. Which is kind of cool. I am tempted by the game from everything you've said. I don't own a Wii U, so that's kind of...
Neither did I until the release of Splatoon was forthcoming, and I said, yeah, it's time for me to get on this train.
Seriously? It was a system seller?
It was the one that pushed me over the edge. There were plenty of other games like Hyrule Warriors and Smash that I was, kind of tangentially interested in, but from the moment I saw Splatoon announced last year at E3, I just looked at it and went, this is the most ridiculous idea Nintendo has had since Pikmin. I think this is going to be really darn fun.
Mm-hmm. It's worth noting that build from E3 2014 was only about 10% complete, according to the Iwata Asks article, which means they only had that one map, that one set of weapons, and it still looked incredibly polished even a year ago.
And
so
they just had folks lining up for it and going, this is insane.
It really stole the show. And it really kind of heralded the fact that 2014 going into 2015 was the first year when owning a Wii U was actually worth it. And I say that as somebody who got it at launch.
So do you two own the Miis? Not the Miis, but the Amiibos for this game?
I do.
Did you buy the 3-pack or the 2-pack?
I got the 3-pack.
See, I am missing the squid. I have the boy and the girl.
And the squid's only available if you buy the 3-pack.
Yeah.
Or if you got one of the European special edition versions, but if you were in Britain, you weren't because that truck got stolen.
Uh-huh.
Seriously?
Yes.
The truck containing, I believe it was the entire shipment of special edition versions of Splatoon for the game chain of video game retailers, was nicked. They nicked the entire bloody lorry, as they would say over on that side of the pond. And so Game had to panic, send out emails saying, look, they stole the darn truck. We can't fulfill your pre-order, sorry.
Wow.
That is almost as WTF filled as the Rosalina guy from last year, too.
So, what does the Amiibo do anything in the game?
The Amiibo, each of them unlock 20 different challenges, which then unlocks a full set of gear, a headpiece, body piece, and foot piece, a mini game that you can actually play in the matchmaking lobby on the gamepad, and I believe the last unlock for each of them is an alternate version of one of the guns.
I think so. I have not done more than about 2 or 3 missions because I'm having too much fun with the multiplayer mode to even go too deep into the single player.
Yeah, each of the Amiibo challenges is an alternate take on one of the single player modes, one of the single player stages, except it changes up what weapon you get. Mm-hmm. Like, normally you just have the Super Soaker styled, they call it the Hero Blaster, but if you're doing the Girl Amiibo challenges, it gives you, like, more of a sniper rifle kind of a weapon, one of the Chargers. Mm-hmm. The Boy Amiibo gives you rollers with which you have to do the single-player modes, and the squid alternates between letting you be the Kraken for entire single-player modes, which is bloody ridiculous. Those they actually have to do as speed runs because it's just way too easy. You can actually just run up any vertical surface in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Although some of the squid challenges, instead of being the Kraken ones, are ink limited stages.
Oh.
Those I've been finding are among the most difficult.
I bet that is the set that gets you the school uniform, or is that the girls' challenges?
It's the girls' challenges that gets you the school uniform set.
A squid in a schoolgirl uniform?
Yeah. Come on, Jim, you've been around long enough.
Yeah,
You've seen Stranger Than That.
I have seen Stranger. It's still kind of,
Yeah, if we keep talking about this, we're going to wind up talking about all the inappropriate Miiverse posts. So, how about
now?
we just...
Squidward isn't that inappropriate.
Oh, no. If Squidward was the only thing I've seen on there. Anyway, so, TJ, you're unfamiliar with our rating scale.
No, he's listened.
Wait,
You familiar with the
I've
rating?
listened, I just haven't really been paying attention.
Okay,
when you rate things.
we rate everything based on gears. First gear is sort of a non-starter. Sixth gear is go out and buy this right now.
And
then, of course,
reverse is we turned it off or
couldn't
stopped.
even
Run
stand it.
away from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, guests first, please.
Oh, geez. I would hesitate to give it anything less than fifth gear, and even then it's only because there really wasn't that much content right out of the box, even though the first content patch for it happened 4 days after launch. Mm-hmm. It launched on Friday, and they added a new map, a new weapon, and the ranked play mode on Monday.
Okay. Well, for me, I'm going to have to go with a solid fifth gear as well. There are some little quirks in the gameplay that make things a little bit messy. The patch 1.2 did come out the morning that this was taped, and that solved an exploit, but not necessarily any of the quality of life issues. But at the same time, I think it's not just what Nintendo's doing with this, but the community that's really going to take this one off. So, fifth gear at a bare minimum, sixth gear if you're a big fan.
Possibly sixth gear by the end of the summer if Nintendo makes good on all the content they're threatening to add.
Right.
They've been saying that there's going to be something along the lines of 14 maps by August.
Yeah, there's no reason to doubt that this is going to be their big game, and we're probably going to hear more about it at E3 in the middle of June.
They've actually compared the amount of marketing push that they've been giving Splatoon to the amount of marketing push they gave Mario Kart 8.
Wow.
Which is big. So,
and helps, distract people from the fact that we're not going to be seeing the new Legend of Zelda until next year.
I'm okay with that. I'm going to be too busy being a squid.
Okay.
Or a kid, alternately.
All right. We need to take a break here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are back once again. This time we are joined with Chris and Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Haven't heard from you for a while.
A little while.
And Chris is still here.
Yeah, you didn't make me leave, so... But, before we get into the meat of our topic, I would like to begin with a story.
Ooh, story time, yay!
Is it long time ago in a galaxy far, far away?
Oh,
No,
you wish.
this actually happened last month or so. So we were killing time on a Saturday night.
As you do.
Yeah, it was late. Most of the
I'm
important...
having a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air moment. DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince moment there.
Wonderful. But it was a very stay-at-home Saturday. All of the shows that we wanted to watch were done for the night. And so I decided to channel surf. And as it so happened, I come across the Disney XD channel that I get because I'm still a cable subscriber. And I noticed something very strange.
Okay.
Doctor Who.
New Doctor Who. David Tennant Doctor Who.
Hey, that's not new Doctor Who.
It's new-ish.
It's part of the new Who pantheon, if we want to get into the...
Classic versus
yeah.
new.
But we had absolutely no idea that this was actually a thing that would happen. But as we further researched, or rather I further researched, Disney XD has reached an agreement with the BBC to air the Tennant seasons of Doctor Who. They started in May by plugging in the first Tennant episode, New Earth, at various points in the schedule. And starting on June 13th, they actually started with regular episodes as opposed to just one episode, like the same episode 3 or 4 times over the week.
Why?
Well, that's my question, because, well, this is not anything to do with the quality of Tennant versus other Doctors. This is not a new versus old thing, although getting digital cable and getting retro TV, I get to partake in the classic Who, which is fun times. But that's not important. It's not about the show itself. It's about why Disney would go to the lengths of acquiring Doctor Who.
It surprised me to find it on something that wasn't BBC America, because we don't really get BBC America, and so I haven't been able to watch it from them directly. So to have this other outlet is kind of odd. Although it is sort of, I guess, considered tokusatsu if you think about it, if you look at it a little bit sideways, because all the special effects stuff that they do, and was originally intended to be a family-friendly program.
And in Japan, the voice actor for Momotaros from Den-O does the voice of David Tennant, the 10th Doctor.
Nice.
That's hilarious. But it's a head-scratcher. If I'm looking from this perspective of the network, it raises 2 questions.
Why the hell did they cancel Tron Uprising?
No, Jim. No, Jim, that's your question. The thing is, why would Disney XD pay someone else for the broadcast rights to air someone else's programming on their network? I mean, they're the freaking Disney Channel. That not only do they have access to ABC programming and a whole bunch of other stuff, they now have the license to Marvel, to Star Wars. I mean, what they are doing is essentially renting 3 seasons of a television show. Because when you acquire a show like this, or at least this is how I imagine it goes, you pay for the broadcasting rights. However, merchandise isn't going to be... You don't have the merchandising rights. You can't really do anything else. You can't, like, release DVDs or whatever, especially since it's old.
Yeah, it's basically syndication.
Basically syndication. And when you consider that Disney already has lots of first-party content, I mean... You remember Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and stuff from the 90s like that? Craig McCracken, who is the brain behind some of that, is now working for Disney XD, creating Wander Over Yonder, and I will wholeheartedly endorse that show. But it's not like they are at a lack of ways of finding content. So that just confuses me to heck and back. And second of all, this is something that I've picked up from watching more Doctor Who than I have in the rest of my life combined, is that Doctor Who's kind of violent. Like, actual violent. Like, it's not a Doctor Who episode unless somebody dies, right? Or at least an arc.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I'm racking my brain to think if there are any episodes where nobody dies.
I mean,
There's gotta be, but Arc I would agree with.
but even with just the episode that they were showing as sort of a test, whatever, New Earth, we start with someone who's been mutilated to the point where they're just a piece of, like, leather with a face.
Cassandra.
Yes, Cassandra. There are sort of plague-ridden zombies. One of them gets incinerated within the first act. You have a character who falls to their death from a great height. Someone who eventually dies from terminal illness. All sorts of wonderful violent things. And this isn't like cartoons where it's like, or Star Wars where you can just sort of write off, this is fantasy, or not actual people. These are actual actors in makeup or prosthetics, which look really good, by the way. And they're getting subjected to all sorts of wonderful horrors and torture.
The girls like David Tennant.
But not Billy Piper. although I would argue this particular episode, if you don't like Billy Piper, you need to watch this episode because she did such a good job. Like, the two of them passing Cassandra back and forth was just really impressive.
But
Anyway.
But I can see why they would do it. It's still annoying because they canceled Tron Uprising because it was outside their demographic. It was attracting too old an audience. And
Because
that was
Tron. Got it.
Yeah, it was attracting an older audience.
And you think Doctor Who will attract the boys that are 7 to 12?
That was my comment. I'm like, hold on a second. Doctor Who is going to attract a lot older crowd than 7 to 12-year-olds.
I mean, as a fan of things in general, I'm generally okay with things being spread out to a wider audience, and certainly having this on a supplemental Disney channel is probably a wider audience than maybe even BBC America.
Remind me, what time was that airing at?
That was airing at about 10 o'clock at night.
Ah, okay.
And that's
so
when
here's
that's actually when Tron Uprising aired.
Okay, but the point that I was about to make is that back in the 90s or whatever, that was basically quote-unquote Nick at Night time slot where all the parents were tuning in after the kids' shows were over.
I mean,
and so if you have the channel on anyway, and then something that appeals more to the parents, that might be something to draw more people in.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know when it's airing currently, but if it is still post-Watershed, there may be a case in that favor, but why can't you just make it yourself? Why can't you...
Right, that is
create
what the
some
question
sort of,
is.
Especially when you still have new content on Disney XD. That, like I said, Wander Over Yonder. There's Star versus the Forces of Evil, which is basically your standard American cartoon fare with magical girl premise. But there's all sorts of stuff that you can do, and yet here you are renting 3 seasons.
It's cheaper.
I can't.
Because it already exists.
You're renting a show that's almost 10 years old. You're renting a 10-year-old show that is available on Netflix. It's on Hulu. It's on every major platform available. It was on BBC America. It's basically 10 years old. It has no real... It's on DVD. It's on Blu-ray. You can buy the DVD Blu-ray of the Tennant series for $10.
But here's the other thing. If I'm BBC and I hear Disney come calling, why would I not try and wring out every single dollar that I can from Disney and possibly jack up the price?
Because if I'm Disney, I go to them and say, look, I'm willing to air this show. It's old. Give me a good deal. BBC goes, well, I've made every bit of money I can make off of DVDs and Blu-rays. I've made every bit of money I'm going to make off of streaming services. All I have left is this show gathering dust. If they pay me $10,000 to air it, or whatever, that's $10,000 for a show that's going to sit on the shelf and not get broadcast again. That's just residual income. That's gravy at this point. It's going to cost significantly less to buy that show for $10,000, $15,000 or whatever than it is to go out and produce a new TV show that's not a reality show. You figure you've got... Reality shows are the cheapest thing to produce. There's no script. You're not paying the actors half the time. So you could produce a show for a couple $1,000s. Yeah, Chris?
That's not necessarily true, at least for the reality docs that I see. Participants are compensated. There aren't writers per se, but there are definitely people who work with reworking and reshooting. So there is some writing involved.
But it's still not the case of the production.
It's not like you're hiring a bunch of people in a room to produce content.
And you're not hiring actors, so you're not paying union wages. So it's, realistically speaking, it's a cost-saving measure. It's filling an hour-long slot on their television that they can sell advertising through, that they don't have to spend a fortune to put on the air.
So why don't they show reruns of stuff they already have?
Because you still have to have new content, or different content. You can't keep showing the same episode of Dexter's Laboratory 5 times a day, like they used to do on Cartoon Network, and expect people to watch. Your advertisers aren't going to spend money to fill a spot if it's the same show that they bought advertising at 4 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, and now they have to buy advertising for midnight. It's like Doctor Who is a brand that you could go to an advertising agency and say, look, I've got a spot here on a show. We'll give you a discount, a deal, if you buy this, buy in the show. Doctor Who has a standing following. We can advertise it. We can work with you. And we can make a few bucks off of filling a channel, filling an hour time slot that wouldn't be filled by anything other than a rerun of some other show that they have that no one would watch.
Well, we may agree to disagree on this, but it is certainly very weird for this to be happening. Not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. Although one other weird aspect that I don't like about this deal, especially since watching New Earth and knowing sort of a limited grasp of the greater context, there's a lot of continuity involved in New Earth, and that sort of sucks that they don't have the Eccleston season, but I know exactly why they don't. And it probably is 2 words long, well, 3, and it involves Captain Jack Harkness. Which makes me sad.
They're going to have to deal with address Captain Jack anyways.
Well, yeah, because he comes back with David Tennant.
Season 2.
Ah.
So, with that, I think we've beaten this horse to death, and then brought him back to life and beat him again.
Well, as is the case with Doctor Who. I mean, he's only been doing this for, 900 years or so?
At least.
All right. We're going to take a break now. We are back and joined with TJ once again. Hi, TJ.
Bonjour. I don't have to speak French anymore, do I? Yay!
And we got C.
Hi.
Domo. And we're here to talk about 4 jobs and a fiesta. You can wear a sombrero if you like.
Wait, is Hugh Grant in this one? Because I think I've seen that.
No, that's 4 weddings and a funeral.
Oh.
We just have Hugh Laurie.
Oh. Right, Hugh Laurie. Oh. What?
Exactly.
Anyway, so what is this 4-job fiesta thing?
4-job fiesta is a bunch of folks playing Final Fantasy V all summer for charity. Exactly the kind of thing I can get on board with.
Have you done it?
I've done it the last couple years. It's a specific challenge type run of Final Fantasy V. You know how pretty much every Final Fantasy folks come up with like additional challenges to the game, like a cloud-only run of Final Fantasy VII, or like a single job run of Final Fantasy Tactics. Well, since Final Fantasy V was the one that really elaborated on the job system, they fiddle with how you get to use jobs in that game.
Okay.
As you may be familiar, when you're going through Final Fantasy V, occasionally you come across big old elemental crystals, as you're wont to do in pretty much every
that's
Final
kind of
Fantasy
common in
game.
Final Fantasy. Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, that's like, what, all of them?
Pretty much, all of them except 7.
Well,
7
no,
had materia, which is just kind
crystals.
of liquid crystal, I guess, maybe kind of.
Crystallized goo. Anyway, go on.
Precisely. So each time you run across one of these crystals, you get more jobs. Kind of like, it was really Tactics that introduced the West to the job system, but it was originally developed in Final Fantasy III and then elaborated in Final Fantasy V.
Okay.
So, while you get between 4 and 6 jobs every time you run across one of these crystals, the rules of the 4-job Fiesta run state that you can only use one of them. And that one is dealt to you at random by a Twitter bot.
Really?
So, once you get to the Wind Crystal, that opens up Knight, Monk, Thief, White Mage, Black Mage, Blue Mage. You tweet #wind to the bot that runs the whole thing, and it tells you, okay, you get White Mage. And then from the Wind Crystal to the Water Crystal, your entire team has to be White Mages.
Okay.
And then once you get to the next crystal, that gives you another set of jobs. You send another tweet to the bot, and it says, okay, you get whatever the next job is. Let's say Red Mage. So from that point on, you have to have at least one White Mage, at least one Red Mage, and those are the only 2 jobs that anyone can be.
So as you go along, you accumulate additional jobs, but only 4
Yes.
by the end of the game.
There are 4 crystals, and each time you hit one, you get a new job, so you get 4 jobs.
Now, whoever you choose to be the White Mage when you get the second... Okay, let's say you are dealt White Mage at the first crystal. And the second crystal you're dealt blah, blah, blah. Okay?
Yep.
If someone is a White Mage, do they remain a White Mage for the remainder of the game? Or can you switch among the 4 jobs, like sit, stand, and lean in Whose Line Is It Anyway?
That depends on what type of run you're doing. There are actually additional challenges like the natural run, which just says, okay, Bartz, since he's the one who's represented by the Wind Crystal, the first job, he gets it, and everyone else has to stay freelancers up until you get to the next job, which goes to Lena.
Okay.
And those are the only jobs that they can do. In a standard run, which is the kind that I prefer doing, you can move people throughout the jobs so long as you have one of each job that you've been dealt at a time.
Okay.
At least one.
Now, for me, I have never made it all the way through Final Fantasy V.
I've never played it.
I think I got to the Wind Crystal, started playing around with the job system, and then wound up overwhelmed, as I do with every Final Fantasy game that has a job system.
Well, yeah.
Because I'm of that type, and I blame my friend Mike for this, that I have to master everything before I can move forward.
This kind of prevents you from doing exactly that.
Which is probably a good thing for me, because I would totally be sitting there going, okay, I've got... Bartz is now a full White Mage. He's got all those things. Now I got to shift him over to Knight, and then blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No, not going to do that. So, how do we register for this?
Well, you can go to 4jobfiesta.com. That's got all of the information about all the Twitter commands that you need to send to Gilgabot, since it's Gilgamesh, but it's a Twitter bot. It's Gilgabot.
Of course it's Gilgamesh.
And now we fight like men. And ladies who dress like men.
I'm guessing that's a quote.
And small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri?
No.
No, none of those, although Enkidu pops up on a couple occasions and you got to deal with him.
Wait. Enkidu, the green chicken?
Not from Final Fantasy XIV. This is the real one.
Oh.
Exactly.
Oh, dear. Okay, so, forjobfiesta.com?
forjobfiesta.com. It shows you a running tracker of the charity donations. It's generally commonplace to throw a couple bucks towards Child's Play. I believe last year they ended up raising north of $11,000.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wow.
That's not bad.
And there are other things that you can do on there. There's some other game modes, like one that gives you primarily mage characters, one that gives you primarily not mage characters. There's a Berserker Risk feature that's been growing in popularity for the last several years, where the amount of donations taken before the Fiesta starts in earnest on June 22nd contributes Berserkers. And if you sign up for a Berserker Risk run, you might get a Berserker.
What's a berserker?
Berserkers just attack, and attack, and attack, and attack, and you can't control them. And
They
you
have
always
tremendous
have to have
attack
one.
power, but their defense is darn near 0. So, yeah, not necessarily a tanky game. Now, you said June 22nd. That, I believe, is a week before Heavensward hits. So, I probably am going to have to go real fast through 5.
It's not all that difficult. The last time that I did a 4-job Fiesta run, I did the entire thing in one 16-hour sitting. It wasn't that bad. Granted, I was handed a pretty healthy lineup of jobs. Generally, if you get Blue Mage, you're on easy street. If you get Summoner and Blue Mage, you can just Mighty Guard and Golem your way through pretty much anything. If you get Chemist, you've more or less already won.
All right, fair enough.
Due to the... Final Fantasy V has a number of intricacies that, since folks have been doing these 4-job Fiesta runs, have really been explored in depth. Things like how you can manipulate enemy levels using chemists and blue mages and be able to level 5 death anything in the game.
That actually, man...
Even more than blue mages can already level 5 death a number of significant bosses.
Yeah, at some point I'm going to have to start looking into the game, not for the challenge, but just for doing it, because some of this...
It's a good
I
time.
love messing with mechanics.
Exactly.
I love messing the world with mechanics.
There's a significant amount of fiddling that you can do.
Okay, June 22nd, 4-job Fiesta. TJ will be doing it. I will probably be doing it.
I'll be doing it a couple times, probably.
Depending on how deep in Daigaku Z I'm in. So I'll probably be really, really strapped for time at that point. But we'll see. Okay.
Well, I guess we'll cut that. We'll cut from here, go to a break, and thank you guys.
Thanks.
Well, with that sound, you know it's time for us to wrap this show up. See, we've made it through 5 episodes in a season. It's better than we did in 3 and 4. A lot better than we did in 3 and 4. I have to say, we succeeded. Now we got to keep it getting regular schedule. So, yeah, we were supposed to post on Friday last week. Last episode was posted on a Tuesday, and this one's posted looking like on a Sunday. So, we're getting better. We're getting better. There's a lot of stuff going on in our lives and the OTDT staff, so things get in the way. Again, this is a hobby, not a job, so if we were getting paid, I think it would be a heck of a lot better deadline keeping. So, with that, we have, hey, I didn't begin the ending segment with an elongated and. That's a positive. That's 2 segments in a row that I have recorded on my own that I have not done that and. That is sweet. Now, wrapping it up, you can visit us on social media at Facebook at Otaku Drive Time, YouTube at Otaku Drive Time, Vimeo Otaku Drive Time, VK Otaku Drive Time, Tumblr Otaku Drive Time, Twitter OTD Tweets. See, I threw you there. Instagram Otaku Drive Time, and a lot of other social media things is Otaku Drive Time. The only one that's special is our Twitter, which is OTD Tweets, which seems like a cool idea. And after listening to TJ's comment at the end of the last episode, yeah, it kind of makes sense. It is a little weird, but it is what it is. So with that, on behalf of everybody on the Otaku Drive Time crew, I wish you guys a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good drive time, good train time, wherever you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this. Thank you very much. Please give us feedback whenever you get a chance. We love y'all.